Welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief. I'm Adam Lucente. Today is Thursday, March 5th, 2026. It's day 6 of the war between the US and Israel and Iran, and the strikes in the Gulf are showing no signs of letting up. The United Arab Emirates said on Thursday it has intercepted 1,001 drones and destroyed 181 ballistic missiles fired at its territory since the war began. Bahrain said it has destroyed 123 drones and 75 missiles so far, while Qatar reported the interception of 13 ballistic missiles and 4 drones on Thursday alone. On Tuesday, Kuwait held a funeral for 2 of its soldiers killed in the attacks. This is easily the biggest security challenge for the region since the Gulf War in the early 90s. Iran has said it is only targeting US assets, but a number of Gulf energy installations have been hit, as well as civilian infrastructure like hotels and airports. Civilian deaths have been reported in the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman. On Thursday, the British military said it is sending 4 additional Typhoon fighter jets to Qatar in an effort to bolster defenses there. France has also announced recently it is sending military hardware to the region. The question many are left wondering is how long can the Gulf successfully defend itself? And why is Iran focusing so heavily on targets in the region, considering it was the US and Israel who attacked it? To help make sense of this, I spoke to the author of the Al Monitor Gulf newsletter, Francesco Schiavi. Francesco takes us through the gaps in the Gulf states' defense efforts, how the war will affect ties among countries in the region, and whether we could see them play a direct role in combating Iran. We'll also touch on Europe's deployment of military assets to the Middle East. Hope you enjoy. Francesco, welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief.
Hi, Adam, and thank you for having me. It's great to be here again.
Yeah, it's good to speak to you, especially about this topic. You wrote a really interesting analysis for us. So I wanted to ask you first, like a basic question. What's the bottom line? In your view, how is the Gulf faring in terms of protecting its territory from these Iranian or suspected Iranian attacks?
So far, Gulf air defenses are providing relatively effective, especially against missiles, but the main stress comes from drones, in my opinion. So far, there were at least 2,500 confirmed Iran-linked projectiles across the region. Two-thirds of them drones, the rest missiles, cruise, and ballistic missiles. That means that roughly two-thirds of the strike mix consists of drones, reflecting, let's say, a volume-first strategy designed to pressure sensors, command and control system, and of course, interceptor stocks. So again, most of the campaign is concentrated around the Gulf. Around, I think, 85% of the attacks have occurred there, and the distribution is highly asymmetric. For example, at least 70% of the targets hit just 2 countries, the UAE and Kuwait. The UAE alone absorbed roughly half of all recorded strikes, while Israel, for example, which is the country that has launched the war, that started the war with Iran, and just accounted for about 10-12% of the Iranian bombardments. Again, also performance varies by country. The UAE, in my opinion, has achieved some of the strongest results, both intercepting roughly more than 90% of both missiles and drones through a layer network combining, we know he deploys the THAAD, Patriots, and also the newer South Korean KSAMs. Other countries, for example, Kuwait and Bahrain, have also intercepted missiles effectively, but they have less effective against drones. So missile defense is performing well, but low altitude drones remain the main operational challenge. And this creates pressure on counter-US defenses and interceptor stability, especially if the campaign will continue.
And Francesco, what do you think are the main reasons behind these challenges, especially with the drones? Is this a lack of expertise? Is it too much reliance on the US? Do they not have enough military hardware in their arsenal? What do you think is going on?
Well, one of the main challenge, in my opinion, is coverage. Gulf air defense system, including THAAD, Patriot, NASAMS, and KSAM, are highly capable, but they are designed to protect priority targets such as cities, bases, and energy infrastructure, and not provide full territorial shielding. So when Iran launches missiles and drones towards multiple countries and targets simultaneously, defenders must split radar coverage and interceptor stocks across several directions and also altitudes. Most of the systems that I mentioned you are fully designed for intercept high to medium level incoming attacks, which are mostly made by missiles, ballistic missiles, while drones usually are slower, have smaller radar trace, and also they're flying low. So they operate in a totally different level, and that makes drones more difficult to intercept. But also another main challenge is endurance, of course. The conflict is increasingly becoming a war of attrition between offensive salvos and defensive interceptors. As we know, Iran can produce large numbers of relatively cheap drones, while Gulf states rely on really expensive interceptors, which cost around millions each. So, for example, analysts estimate that for every dollar Iran spends on drones, defenders may spend between $20 and $28 in interception. So if the tempo continues, the key question here may simply not be may simply be who rounds out of missiles or interceptor first. Again, as you mentioned, also the Gulf defenses remain closely linked to the United States support. Early warning, radar coverage, operational coordination rely heavily on U.S. assets, which are based in the east, such as the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, or the U.S. naval defense in the region. So this means Gulf Air Defense's performance is still connected to U.S. intelligence, integration, and logistical support. And of course, when they came under fire, that means a lot.
And Francesco, why do you think, considering the Gulf states did not initiate this war, why is Iran firing so much at these Gulf targets? And do you think the Gulf might retaliate directly?
Well, I think that Iran's logic is brutally simple. Expand the battle space, raise the cost, and try to outlast Washington politically and logistically. Tehran can compete with the US-Israeli air power in a, let's say, platform versus platform contest. So it leans into what it has in mass, so missiles and especially drones. And again, as we mentioned earlier, the Gulf is absorbing the majority of the pressure and not Israel, for example, which tells you that Iran is aiming at the coalition's soft underbelly. So energy nodes, ports, airports, and the business hub image of places like Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And between the lines, we can also read a coercive message. So hosting US bases bring direct cost, especially even for states that try to signal neutrality at the start of the war. Back to your question, I think that would the Gulf join the fight against Iran too? I think that full offensive participation is still a high threshold. But again, the neutrality space has narrowed sharply since missiles and drones again started landing on airports, ports, energy sites, and urban areas across the GCC. So the strongest indicator so far, in my opinion, is political. The emergency GCC posture and the Article 51 framing on March the 2nd signals readiness for collective self-defense and coordinated response if attacks persist. So in practice, Gulf states are already deeply involved in defensive ways, but this involvement is just not offensive escalation. So whether they join depends on two triggers, in my opinion. The first one is sustain on or escalating hits on critical energy infrastructure and civilian casualties that could become politically impossible to absorb. That would be one of the trigger. The other is again, it's related to the interceptor sustainability problem. If defensive magazine become strains, Gulf leaders may calculate that degrading Iran's launch capability is the only way to restore stability. So altogether, this could be the only option, in my opinion, where the Gulf may decide to pass this threshold. But even then, the likely path is calibrated, in my opinion. So more access with the US forces and other allies' forces, more coordination, possibly selective strikes.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Francesco Schiavi after this short break.
Today's transformation of the Middle East is at the center of global geopolitics. Whether you're an analyst, diplomat, executive, or academic, you need the best reporting and analysis to understand what's really happening on the ground and what it means for the world. Al-Monitor is the award-winning independent leader in Middle East news. From Riyadh to Beirut, Abu Dhabi to Doha, and Baghdad to Tehran, our team of over 100 expert journalists report daily on the top stories driving the regional trends. Download our mobile app and subscribe to Al-Monitor to follow what leaders and decision makers are reading every day. Go to almonitor.com, that's AL-MONITOR.com, and use promo code POD25, POD25 for a discount.
Okay, we're back. Francesco, how do you think this war might change Gulf security thinking in the future? Could we see more significant cooperation between the states on this? And is that already happening despite the many regional rivalries that you and I especially have discussed in the past?
I think that this war will has already changed Gulf security thinking, and it's already happening in political form, even if the operational integration remains imperfect. So the key shift, in my opinion, is psychological. The Gulf is no longer a rear area in a US-Iran crisis. So since the start of the war, Iran already has hit multiple GCC states. This has been condemned on March the 2nd at the GCC Ministerial Council, which condemned the attacks as sovereignty violations and explicitly invoked Article 51 of the UN Charter. So I think operationally, the war will accelerate this kind of intra-GCC closing ranks in two tracks. The first one is deeper air defense coordination, shared early warning, the confliction, and more, let's say, systematic integration across different anti-aircraft platforms, as well as new layers. The second one is, of course, counter UAV investment, so more sensors, more short-range interception options, more electronic warfare, and let's say better drone depth. Again, on longer term, Gulf states will likely double down on diversification and local defense industry capacity, but not as a clear breakdown from the US. And of course, this is in a long-term perspective. But again, this conflict is the one that literally seems to have put the UAE, Saudi Arabia rift aside. So I think per se it has a lot of how under the same pressure, Gulf states can cooperate in a more constructive way, as we have seen over the last months, at least.
And finally, obviously, you write about the Gulf for Al-Monitor, but you are a European, so I'm going to ask you. You know, the UK and France have indicated that they are sending more military assets to the region. What effect do you think this could have on the defense of the Middle East and, I guess, the conflict in general?
Well, I think that European moves should be read primarily as a stabilization and a perimeter defense, so not Europe joining the war per se. As you mentioned, France and the UK are the most relevant because they have already permanent footprints in the Gulf and can act quickly to protect bases they already have there, as well as citizens and, of course, air and maritime routes. They have done this, they have been joined, first of all, by other states such as Spain, Italy, and Greece that are sending also naval and ground assets to the region. This has been done in two ways. The first one is the strengthening of current base and assets they already have in the region, mostly in the Gulf, but not limited to that. For example, France has a permanent presence in the UAE. The RAF, the British RAF, already has a joint squadron, European Typhoon Squadron with Qatar Air Forces. So they have strengthened their presence there, especially for defensive purposes, and of course in support of their allies. And also we have seen a progressive reinforcement of Eastern Mediterranean, especially with naval assets. We have seen both the UAE and France redirecting the Charles de Gaulle and the Prince of Wales to Eastern Mediterranean, and also Spain, Italy, and Greece considering sending some of the frigates to Eastern Mediterranean, as well as more interceptors to Cyprus, which has been under attack early in March, and all of these has been done as part of in respect of the Article 42 of the Lisbon Treaty, signed in 2007. Again, sending interceptor batteries, anti-drones, improving the electronic warfare capabilities of the island. That since the launch of the first two drones to the Akrotiri base there was mostly unarmed. So they improved the conditions in the island. Again, all these logic are defensive in nature. I cannot stress it more than this, so far at least. And again, one of the key logic is the protection of European territory.
Francesco, thanks a lot for your time, and we look forward to more of your reporting, analyses, and newsletters on this topic.
Thank you so much, Adam, and it's always great to join you.
Okay, thank you for listening to the Al Monitor Brief. If you want to hear more from Francesco, please be sure to see his writing on almonitor.com and subscribe to the Al Monitor Gulf newsletter. Until next time, I'm Adam Lucente.